The morning sun filtered through the stained glass windows of St. Michael's Cathedral, casting colorful patterns across the marble floor. I stood at the altar in my ivory dress, my heart pounding with what I thought was just wedding day nerves. The scent of white roses filled the air, and the soft murmur of 200 guests created a gentle backdrop to what should have been the happiest moment of my life. Father Rodriguez had been speaking the traditional blessing, his voice steady and warm as it had been during all our pre-marriage counseling sessions. Michael stood beside me, his hand gently squeezing mine, his eyes filled with love and promise. Everything was perfect. Everything was exactly as we had planned. Do you, Catherine, take Michael to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer? But then something changed. Father Rodriguez's voice faltered mid-sentence. His eyes, which had been moving between Michael and me with practiced ease, suddenly locked onto my face with an intensity that made my stomach drop. The color drained from his weathered cheeks, and his hands, which had been raised in blessing, began to tremble slightly. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. 200 pairs of eyes watched as Father Rodriguez stood frozen, his mouth slightly open, his gaze burning into mine. I felt my cheeks flush with heat, and a cold sweat broke out along my spine. I knew exactly what he was remembering. I knew exactly why he looked like he'd seen a ghost. 3 weeks ago, the confessional booth. My voice shaking as I whispered words I never thought I'd have to say. "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I've been unfaithful to my fiancé." Michael's hand in mine felt suddenly heavy, and I could see the confusion growing in his eyes. Behind us, I heard my mother's sharp intake of breath. The organist, sensing something was wrong, let the music fade to silence. Father Rodriguez blinked rapidly, as if trying to clear his vision. He pressed his lips together, and I watched as his throat worked, swallowing hard. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I'm sorry. I'm feeling a bit unwell." He looked directly at me again, and I saw something in his eyes that made my heart race. Not anger, but a deep, profound sadness. Could we pause for just a moment? The murmur from the congregation grew louder. I heard someone behind me whisper, "Is he okay?" Michael's grip on my hand tightened, and he leaned closer to me. "Are you all right, Father?" Michael asked, his voice filled with genuine concern. Father Rodriguez nodded quickly, perhaps too quickly. Yes, just need a moment. The heat, you know." He gestured vaguely toward the back of the church. I'll get some water and be right back. This is a beautiful ceremony. Beautiful." As he walked away, his steps slightly unsteady, I felt the weight of 200 stares. But none of them knew what I knew. None of them understood that in that moment of recognition, Father Rodriguez had seen not just the bride standing before him, but the woman who had knelt in his confessional booth, tears streaming down her face, confessing to betraying the very man she was about to marry. I squeezed Michael's hand and managed a shaky smile. "It's okay," I whispered to him. "He'll be fine." But as I watched Father Rodriguez disappear through the side door, I wondered if anything would ever be fine again. The next 10 minutes felt like hours. I stood at the altar, my bouquet of white roses trembling in my hands, while Michael tried to keep the mood light with quiet jokes and reassuring smiles. Behind us, the wedding guests shifted restlessly in their pews, whispering among themselves about what could have caused such an unusual interruption. My maid of honor, Jessica, moved closer to me. "Are you okay, Kat? You look pale." I forced a smile and nodded, but inside my mind was racing. I kept replaying that moment in the confessional 3 weeks ago when I had finally gathered the courage to tell Father Rodriguez about David, about how my college sweetheart had come back into my life 2 months before my wedding, about how one lunch meeting to catch up had turned into something I never intended. "I don't know how it happened, Father," I had whispered through the screen that separated us. I love Michael. I really do. But when I saw David again, all those old feelings came rushing back. We only slept together once. Maybe twice. I'm so ashamed. Father Rodriguez had listened in silence, and when I finished, he had spoken with the same gentle voice he always used. God forgives those who truly repent, my child. But you must ask yourself, can you enter into this marriage with a clear conscience? Can you honor your vows to Michael? I had left the confessional that day, promising to end things with David, promising to focus on my upcoming marriage. But now, standing here with Father Rodriguez's shocked expression burned into my memory, I realized I had never actually ended things with David. I had simply pushed the guilt down deeper, telling myself that what Michael didn't know wouldn't hurt him. When Father Rodriguez finally returned, he looked steadier, though his eyes still held that same deep sadness. He had splashed water on his face, and his graying hair was slightly damp around the temples. The congregation settled back into silence as he took his place at the altar. I apologize for the interruption, he said, his voice stronger now. Sometimes the solemnity of such a beautiful occasion can be overwhelming. He looked at Michael first, offering him a genuine smile. Then his eyes met mine, and I saw something there that made my chest tighten. Not condemnation, but a quiet understanding that seemed to say, I know who you are and I'm praying for you. The ceremony continued, but I felt disconnected from it all. I heard myself repeating the vows, promising to love and honor Michael, to forsake all others. The words felt like ash in my mouth, and I wondered if Father Rodriguez could hear the hollowness in my voice. When Michael kissed me, sealing our union, the congregation erupted in applause. Rice flew through the air as we walked back down the aisle, and I smiled and waved, playing the part of the radiant bride. But inside, I felt like I was drowning. At the reception, held in the grand ballroom of the Marriott downtown, I went through the motions. I danced with Michael, cut the cake, threw my bouquet. But as the evening wore on and the champagne flowed, I found myself seeking out Jessica during a quiet moment on the terrace. Jess, can I tell you something? I asked, my voice barely audible over the music drifting from inside. She turned to me, her expression immediately serious. Of course, Kat. What's wrong? You've seemed off all day. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the secret pressing against my chest. I think Father Rodriguez recognized me today. From confession, Jessica's eyebrows furrowed. What do you mean? 3 weeks ago, I went to confession. I told him about... I paused, the words catching in my throat. I told him about David. The color drained from Jessica's face. David? Your ex from college? Kat, what about David? We've been seeing each other. Not seeing each other. Just... God, this is so messed up. I ran my hands through my hair, careful not to disturb the elaborate updo. We slept together a few times, and I think Father Rodriguez remembered when he saw me today. Jessica was quiet for a long moment, processing what I had told her. Finally, she spoke, her voice gentle but concerned. Kat, what are you going to do? I looked back through the windows at the reception, at Michael laughing with his groomsmen, at our families celebrating our union. I don't know, I whispered. I honestly don't know. 2 months passed in a blur of thank you cards, wedding photo albums, and settling into married life. Michael and I moved into a charming colonial house in the suburbs, complete with a white picket fence and a garden that I promised myself I would learn to tend. On the surface, everything looked perfect. We were the picture of newlywed bliss. But underneath, I was unraveling. I had tried to end things with David after the wedding. I really had. I sent him a text the morning after our honeymoon, telling him that I was committed to my marriage and that we couldn't see each other anymore. His response was understanding, even supportive. I want you to be happy, Kat. If this is what you need, I respect that. But 3 weeks later, when he texted me a photo of a coffee shop where we used to study together in college. I found myself responding. One text led to another, and before I knew it, we were meeting again. Just for coffee, I told myself. Just to talk. The guilt was eating me alive. I would lie awake at night, listening to Michael's steady breathing beside me, wondering what kind of person I had become. I started avoiding mirrors, unable to look at my own reflection. I jumped every time the phone rang, terrified that somehow Michael would find out. It was on a rainy Tuesday afternoon in November that I found myself back in the confessional booth at St. Michael's. The familiar scent of incense and old wood surrounded me as I knelt in the darkness, my hands shaking as I made the sign of the cross. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. It has been 2 months since my last confession. I heard Father Rodriguez shift on the other side of the screen, and when he spoke, his voice was gentle but weary. Go on, my child. I'm the bride from the wedding, the one where you had to take a break. There was a long pause. I remember. I know you recognized me that day. I know you remembered what I told you before. My voice cracked, and I had to take a shaky breath before continuing. I promised you I would end things with him. I promised myself I would be faithful to my husband. But you haven't. It wasn't a question, and the sadness in his voice made my chest tighten. No, I haven't. It's gotten worse, actually. I see him twice a week now. We meet at his apartment. I tell Michael I'm visiting my sister or shopping with friends. And how do you feel about this? I laughed bitterly. How do I feel? I feel like I'm going insane. I feel like I'm two different people. When I'm with Michael, I love him. I genuinely love him. He's kind and funny, and he makes me feel safe. But when I'm with David, I trailed off, struggling to find the words. When I'm with David, I feel alive in a way I haven't felt in years. It's like I'm remembering who I used to be, before I became this responsible, settled person that everyone expects me to be. Father Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. Do you believe you love them both? The question hung in the air between us, and I realized that no one had ever asked me that before. I had been so focused on the shame and the guilt that I hadn't allowed myself to examine the actual feelings underneath. Yes, I whispered. I think I do. I know that sounds impossible, but I think I love them both. In different ways, but yes. Love is not impossible, my child, but marriage is a sacred covenant. It requires choice, commitment, sacrifice. You cannot serve two masters. I know that. I know I have to choose. But how do I choose between two people who make me feel complete in different ways? Perhaps the question is not which one makes you feel complete, but which choice allows you to become the person God calls you to be. I sat in the darkness, tears streaming down my face, knowing he was right but feeling no closer to an answer. I don't know how to stop seeing him, Father. I don't know how to let go. Then, perhaps, he said gently, you need to pray for the strength to want to let go. Sometimes the desire to do right must come before the ability to do right. When I left the confessional that day, I felt more lost than ever. But I also felt something I hadn't felt in months. A tiny spark of hope that maybe, somehow, I could find my way back to the person I wanted to be. The end came sooner than I expected, and in a way I never could have anticipated. It was a cold February morning when David called me, his voice tight with emotion. Kat, we need to talk. Can you meet me at the park? The one near the university. Something in his tone made my stomach clench. What's wrong? You sound. Just meet me there. Please. I found him sitting on our usual bench, the one overlooking the duck pond where we used to sit and plan our futures when we were 22 and thought we had all the time in the world. But now, at 31, with lines around his eyes and a weight to his shoulders that hadn't been there in college, he looked older. Tired. This isn't working, Kat, he said before I could even sit down fully. I felt the ground shift beneath me. What do you mean? This. Us. This whole situation. He gestured between us, his hands trembling slightly. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could be okay with sharing you. But I can't. David, No, let me finish. His voice was firmer now, more resolved. I love you. I've loved you since we were kids, and I probably always will. But I can't be the other man anymore. I can't be the person you come to when you need an escape from your real life. I felt tears building in my eyes. But what we have is real. What we feel is real. I know it is. That's what makes this so hard. He finally looked at me, and I saw my own pain reflected in his eyes. But you're married, Kat. You made a choice on that altar, and even if you regret it, even if you wish things were different, you made it. And I can't keep pretending that what we're doing is okay. So what are you saying? I'm saying goodbye. His voice broke on the last word. I'm moving to Portland. I got a job offer there, and I'm taking it. I need to start over, somewhere where I'm not constantly reminded of what I can't have. We sat in silence for a long time, watching the ducks paddle across the half-frozen pond. The February wind cut through my coat, but I barely felt it. Everything felt numb. I don't know how to do this without you, I whispered finally. You'll figure it out. You're stronger than you think. He stood up, pulling his jacket tighter around himself. But you have to figure it out, Kat. You can't keep living this double life. It's destroying you, and it's destroying everyone around you. He kissed my forehead gently, the way he used to when we were young, and everything seemed possible. Be happy, Kat. Choose happiness. Choose Michael. Choose your marriage. Choose something. And then he was gone, walking away across the park without looking back, leaving me alone on the bench with nothing but the sound of the wind and the distant traffic. That night, I sat in my kitchen, staring at my wedding ring while Michael graded papers at the table beside me. He looked up occasionally, offering me soft smiles, asking if I was okay. I told him I was just tired, just thinking about work. He accepted this the way he always did, with trust and love and a faith in me that I didn't deserve. 3 days later, I was back in Father Rodriguez's confessional booth. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. How long has it been since your last confession, my child? 3 months. But, Father, it's me again, the bride from the wedding. I know. How can I help you today? He's gone. David is gone. He moved away, and he ended things between us. Father Rodriguez was quiet, waiting. I should be relieved, shouldn't I? I should be happy that the temptation is gone, that I can focus on my marriage now. But you're not. I'm devastated, I admitted, the words coming out in a rush. I'm heartbroken and lost, and I don't know how to move forward. But I'm also... I paused, searching for the right words. I'm also grateful. Does that make sense? Tell me more. He was right. What we were doing was destroying me. I was becoming someone I didn't recognize, someone who could lie to the person she loved most in the world. I was becoming someone who could stand at an altar and make promises she had no intention of keeping. And now I want to keep my promises. I want to be the wife Michael deserves. I want to love him the way he loves me, completely, honestly, faithfully. I took a shaky breath. I want to choose my marriage, Father. I want to choose Michael. But I don't know how to forgive myself for the choice I made before. Forgiveness is not something you earn, my child. It's something you receive. From God, from your husband if you choose to tell him, and eventually from yourself. Do you think I should tell Michael? Father Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. That's a decision only you can make. But I will say this, secrets have a way of poisoning even the strongest relationships. Truth, even painful truth, can set you free. When I left the confessional that day, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from having all the answers, but the kind that comes from finally asking the right questions. That evening, I found Michael in our bedroom, reading before sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, my heart pounding, and took his hand in mine. "Michael," I said, my voice barely steady, "I need to tell you something." He looked up from his book, his expression immediately concerned. "What is it, sweetheart?" "I haven't been faithful to you, before our wedding and after. I've been seeing someone else." The book slipped from his hands, and I watched as understanding dawned in his eyes. The hurt that followed was devastating to witness, but I made myself look at him, made myself see the full impact of my choices. "Tell me everything," he said quietly. "I need to know everything." And so I did. I told him about David, about the affair, about the confessions, about the choice I had finally made. I told him about the woman I had been and the woman I wanted to become. I told him the truth, finally and completely, and I waited to see if our marriage could survive it. It wasn't easy. There were tears, anger, long nights of difficult conversations. There were moments when I thought we wouldn't make it, when the trust seemed too broken to repair. But slowly, with the help of counseling and time and Michael's incredible capacity for forgiveness, we began to rebuild. Not the marriage we had before, that was gone forever, but something new, something stronger, something built on truth instead of secrets, on choice instead of obligation. And every Sunday, when we sit together in the pew at St. Michael's Cathedral, I catch Father Rodriguez's eye and see something there that I had never noticed before. Not judgment, but grace. The kind of grace that says, "You are forgiven. You are loved. You can begin again." The stained glass windows still cast the same colorful patterns across the marble floor. But now, when I see them, I think not of the lies I told, but of the truth I finally found the courage to speak. And in that truth, painful as it was, I found the foundation for the life I actually wanted to live.